The stars looked different from Mars. Commander Richard Hayes had noticed this every night during his 3-year posting at Olympus Outpost. Tonight, however, something else caught his eye, a bright flash that shouldn't be there, moving against the black canvas of space. Control, this is Commander Hayes. We have an unidentified object approaching from Vector 227. Can you confirm? Static crackled through his earpiece before a response came. Commander, we're tracking it. Definitely not one of ours. Too fast, and the signature doesn't match any Earth vessel. Richard's heart raced. After decades of searching the stars and sending signals into the void, humanity had always wondered if they were alone. Now it seemed they had their answer. All personnel to alert status, he ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. But hold weapons. Let's not start an interstellar incident on first contact. The object slowed as it approached, revealing itself to be a sleek vessel unlike anything humans had built. Its surface shimmered with an iridescent glow, and it moved, with impossible grace for its size. 6 hours later, Richard stood face to face with the first confirmed alien to visit the solar system. The being called itself Zortal, standing nearly 7 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors like an octopus. Its translator device converted a series of clicks and whistles into English. "We are the Vesperi," the alien said. "We have watched your broadcast for some time. Your species advances quickly." Richard maintained his composure. "We're honored by your visit. I'm Commander Richard Hayes of the Earth Defense Fleet. May I ask what brings you to our system?" The alien's skin rippled blue, an emotional response Richard couldn't interpret. "Necessity. Our civilization faces extinction if we cannot find new allies. We fight a war against an enemy called the Kral Dominion. They destroy all in their path." "A war?" Richard asked. "How long has this conflict lasted?" "By your measurements, over 3 centuries. The Kral are ruthless conquerors. We offer Earth membership in our alliance, protection, technology, knowledge of the galaxy. In exchange, we ask only for military assistance." 2 days later, the United Nations Security Council gathered in an emergency session in New York. The chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from every nation debated humanity's response to the alien invitation. Admiral Samantha Collins, her gray hair pulled into a tight bun and her uniform adorned with medals from the Resource Wars, approached the podium. At 62, she remained one of Earth's most respected military minds. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "I've reviewed the Vesperi proposal extensively. This is humanity's moment. For centuries, we've looked to the stars and wondered if we're alone. Now we know we're not, and our first cosmic neighbors need our help." Murmurs filled the chamber as she continued. "The technology they offer would advance us by at least a century. Their star maps show thousands of habitable worlds. Most importantly, they offer protection. If the Kral are as dangerous as described, refusing this alliance might mark Earth for future conquest." Dr. Alan Murphy, the leading xenobiologist who had spent the past 48 hours studying everything they knew about the Vesperi, raised his hand to speak. His disheveled appearance reflected sleepless nights analyzing the alien data. "With respect, Admiral, we know almost nothing about either side in this conflict. The Vesperi have shown us carefully selected information. We haven't heard the Kral perspective. In human conflicts, truth is often the first casualty." The debate continued for hours. Some nations eager to gain access to alien technology pushed for immediate acceptance. Others urged caution, wanting more information before committing. Earth to an interstellar war. President Eliza Foster listened to all sides before speaking. "We will form a delegation to visit Vesperi territory. We need to understand what we're potentially involving ourselves in. Admiral Collins will lead the military assessment. Dr. Murphy will head diplomatic relations. No formal commitments until we have more information." Far from Earth, orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa, General Ixil of the Vesperi fleet watched recordings of human warfare throughout history on multiple screens. His skin had turned a pale yellow, the Vesperi equivalent of distress. The Earth delegates wouldn't arrive for another week, giving Ixil time to complete his assessment of humanity's military capabilities. What he saw disturbed him deeply. Remarkable, he whispered to his adjutant. They fought a global war less than a century ago that killed millions of their own kind. Their entire history is punctuated by conflict. They advance their deadliest, technologies faster than anything else. On one screen, soldiers crawled through mud under barbed wire as explosions erupted around them. On another, nuclear mushroom clouds bloomed over cities. A third showed modern soldiers in powered exoskeletons conducting urban warfare exercises. Most spacefaring species outgrow war, Ixil said. These humans have refined it to an art form. His adjutant Kelnus nodded. High Command believes this makes them perfect allies against the Crawl. High Command doesn't understand what they're looking at, Ixil replied, his color darkening. Look at this footage from their World War II. Outmatched soldiers fighting house to house in destroyed cities, continuing even when victory seemed impossible. Or here, their Vietnam War, where technologically inferior forces used the environment and unconventional tactics to exhaust a superpower. He switched to footage of a recent training exercise where human soldiers marched 40 miles carrying heavy equipment, then immediately engaged in combat simulations without rest. The Vesperi would collapse after half that distance, Ixil said, and the Kral would consider it torture to make soldiers endure such conditions. Kelnus looked confused. Isn't their endurance an asset? You don't understand, Ixil said, his skin now pulsing with anxiety. Humans don't fight like we do. They don't retreat when casualties reach acceptable loss thresholds. They keep fighting. They adapt. They use psychological warfare. They target supply lines instead of just military assets. He paused a video showing human soldiers continuing to fight despite severe injuries. Get me a secure channel to High Command. These humans are unlike any species we've encountered. If we bring them into this war, I fear what they might do once they fully understand. Galactic politics. They must not be allowed to join this conflict. As Kelnus left to establish the connection, Ixil continued studying the screens, his dread growing by the minute. The Vesperi had invited many species to join their alliance over the centuries. None had displayed the frightening combination of ingenuity, tenacity, and capacity for violence that humans possessed. They think they're recruiting an ally, he muttered to himself. They don't realize they're unleashing something that even the Crawl will fear. Lieutenant Kate Winters felt strange walking through the curved hallways of the Vesperi flagship. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, making her movements feel bouncy and awkward. Beside her, Major Greg Powell seemed equally uncomfortable, his hand never straying far from where his sidearm would normally be. The Vesperi had politely requested they come unarmed for this cultural exchange. I still don't understand what they want us to show them, Kate whispered. Greg shrugged. Admiral Collins says they're curious about human combat techniques. Apparently the Vesperi mostly fight with drones and AI systems. Hand-to-hand combat is rare for them. Their escort, a slim Vesperi with blue-green skin, stopped before a large circular door. Our training arena, the alien explained through its translator. Many of our military leaders have assembled to observe. The door slid, opened to reveal a space the size of a basketball court. The floor was padded, and around the edges sat about 20 Vesperi in what Kate assumed were military uniforms. Their skin colors ranged from pale yellow to deep purple. Among them sat General Ixil, his skin a tight, controlled gray. He had argued against this demonstration but had been overruled by his superiors. Now he watched with growing concern as the two humans entered the arena. We wish to understand your physical combat methods, explained the ranking Vesperi officer. Our species evolved to avoid physical confrontation. We are curious how humans fight without weapons. Kate and Greg exchanged glances before beginning a basic martial arts demonstration. They started with simple moves, punches, blocks, kicks, before moving to more complex takedowns and grappling techniques. The Vesperi watched in silence, their skin colors shifting rapidly. When Greg flipped Kate over his shoulder and she rolled smoothly back to her feet, several aliens visibly flinched. Even your training involves such violence? One asked. This is just practice, Greg explained. In real combat we wouldn't hold back. The demonstration continued for nearly an hour. By the end, Kate and Greg were sweating but barely winded, The Vesperi observers had grown increasingly still, their colors mostly faded to pale yellows and grays. General Ixel spoke for the first time. "You train all your soldiers this way?" Kate nodded. "Basic hand-to-hand combat is standard for all military personnel. Special forces receive much more intensive training." As they left the arena, Ixel turned to his aide. "They consider this basic training," he said quietly, "and they seem to enjoy it." Back on Earth, President Foster stared at the unexpected visitor in her office. The Kral diplomat called himself Dravkos. Unlike the tall, slender Vesperi, he was broad and stocky, with thick, leathery skin and 4 eyes that blinked independently of each other. "You come unannounced," she said carefully. "The Vesperi didn't mention any Kral presence in our system." "They wouldn't," Dravkos replied, his translator giving his voice a deep, rumbling quality. "The Vesperi prefer to control the narrative. I came when we detected their ships approaching your world." Dr. Murphy, present for the meeting, leaned forward. "The Vesperi say you're conquerors who destroy everything in your path." Dravkos made a sound that his translator didn't convert. "Of course they do. And what proof have they offered of these claims?" "Selected historical records," Murphy admitted. "Footage of attacks on Vesperi colonies." "Ask them who attacked first." "Hundreds of years ago," the Kral suggested. "Ask them what happens to the species they recruit after the war in each sector ends." President Foster's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "The Vesperi don't want allies. They want cannon fodder," Dravkos said flatly. "They recruit developing species, gift them technology they can't fully understand, then send them to die in place of Vesperi soldiers." "That's a serious accusation," Foster replied, "which is why I bring evidence." The Kral placed a small device on her desk. "Records of the last 6 species who joined the Vesperi Alliance. Study their fates carefully before you decide." Under the scorching Australian sun, General Ixel watched through the feed of his hidden probe as human soldiers conducted desert warfare exercises. The temperature was 104 degrees Fahrenheit, conditions that would require environmental suits for Vesperi troops. Yet the humans wore only light combat gear as they navigated the harsh terrain. The exercise scenario was brutal. Limited water, simulated enemy fire, and unexpected changes in mission parameters. Ixil expected them to stop when 2 soldiers collapsed from heat exhaustion. Instead, their teammates carried them and their equipment, refusing to leave anyone behind, and completed the mission. "Impossible," Ixil muttered. "The Vesperi would have aborted the exercise. Even the Kral would have retreated to regroup." The human commander then announced that night operations would begin in 3 hours. No rest, no reprieve. Ixil's skin paled to almost white. They do this willingly? To themselves? Later that evening, Dr. Murphy sat alone in his office, reviewing the data Dravkos had provided. If accurate, it told a disturbing story. The Mantari joined the Vesperi Alliance, fought for 20 years, then mysteriously lost their homeworld to natural disasters. The Palox fought for the Vesperi for 15 years before a civil war destroyed their civilization. The pattern repeated with species after species. Murphy compared this with the Vesperi historical records they had been given. The inconsistencies were subtle but significant. Dates didn't quite match. Key events were missing. The narratives clashed in critical ways. His phone rang. It was Kate Winters calling from the Vesperi flagship. "Dr. Murphy, something strange happened today," she said quietly. "After our combat demonstration, I overheard 2 Vesperi officers talking. My translator picked up fragments about perfect frontline troops and acceptable casualty ratios. They were discussing humans like resources, not allies," Murphy sighed. "I'm finding discrepancies in their historical accounts too. I don't think the Vesperi have been entirely honest about this war." "What do we do?" "Keep observing. I'll speak with the president. And, Kate, watch your back up there." Aboard his command ship, General Ixel reviewed the day's observations with growing alarm. The human capacity for violence was even greater than he had feared. Their adaptability, pain tolerance, and resourcefulness exceeded Anything in Vesperi military doctrine. Commander, one of his subordinates called. High Command has rejected your concerns again. They say human violence makes them ideal allies against the Kral. Ixil's skin darkened to a deep blue of frustration. They understand nothing. The humans aren't just violent, they're clever. They ask questions, they notice patterns. If they discover the truth about our war. He stared at the image of Earth rotating peacefully on his view screen. High Command thinks they're recruiting soldiers, he said softly. They don't realize they're playing with fire. I must warn them again, more forcefully. The humans must not join this war, for everyone's sake. Medical Officer Linda Chen stared at the readings on her tablet. The 3 Vesperi soldiers in the medical bay of Lunar Colony Alpha should not have been there. The joint training exercise had barely begun when the aliens collapsed. I don't understand, she told the Vesperi doctor beside her. The exercise wasn't even that demanding by our standards. The alien doctor, whose name sounded like a series of clicks, replied through his translator. Your basic training would kill most Vesperi. Our bodies aren't built for such stress. Linda looked again at the exercise data. The humans in Vesperi had run 5 miles, completed an obstacle course, and performed team combat drills. For Marines like Sergeant Patel's squad, it was a light warm-up. Then why did your commanders insist on this joint exercise? She asked. The Vesperi doctor's skin flickered to a deep purple before returning to its normal blue. They wanted to measure human physical capabilities directly. We had reports, but many didn't believe them. Linda noticed something odd about the doctor's reaction. Not concern for his patients, but something closer to scientific curiosity. He was studying the differences between species with professional interest. And what have you learned? She asked carefully. That humans are remarkable. You evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme weather patterns and dangerous predators. It made you incredibly resilient. The doctor paused. Our commanders will be very interested in these results. On the far side of the moon, in a secure conference room, Admiral Collins met with the Vesperi leadership. They had offered to accelerate technology transfers in exchange for the first human combat units. We can provide ships capable of reaching any star system within 50 light-years, the Vesperi ambassador said. Energy weapons, shield technology, faster-than-light communications. All we ask is that you commit troops to our cause. Admiral Collins studied the star chart between them. The President and Security Council want assurances that human forces will remain under Earth command structure. The Vesperi agreed too quickly. Collins noted this, but said nothing. We would never interfere with your command decisions, the ambassador assured her. We merely suggest deployment locations based on our greater experience. After the meeting, Collins walked alone through the lunar base's observation dome. Earth hung large and blue in the black sky. Her communication device buzzed. A secure message from Dr. Murphy. Admiral, we need to talk. I found something disturbing in the Vesperi records. In his private quarters on the Vesperi command ship, General Ixil prepared his most forceful message yet to High Command. He had spent days reviewing human history, studying their wars, their tactics, their resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. On his screen played footage of a small human force holding off a much larger enemy in something called the Battle of Thermopylae. Another screen showed humans fighting house to house in a city called Stalingrad. A third displayed guerrilla fighters in jungles and mountains, using the environment as a weapon against technologically superior forces. Ixil's aide entered the room. Sir, High Command has rejected your previous communications as alarmist. They say the human integration plan will proceed. Ixil's skin darkened to a deep red. Anger, frustration. They're making a terrible mistake. The humans aren't like the other species we've recruited. They question everything. They adapt constantly, and their capacity for violence when threatened. He gestured to a fourth screen showing a historical reenactment of human ancient warfare. Brutal, primitive, yet displaying tactical thinking that remained relevant even in the age of spaceships and energy weapons. I must try again, Ixil said. Prepare a direct transmission to the High Council itself. Bypass the normal channels. As Ixil composed his message, his ship's sensors detected unusual communications between Earth and the lunar base. They had been instructed not to monitor secure human channels, but Ixil had secretly ordered limited surveillance. Something about Dr. Murphy's activities concerned him. In his cramped office at the United Nations, Dr. Murphy explained his findings to Admiral Collins through secure video link. "The Kral data checks out," he said. "I've cross-referenced it with other sources. The Vesperi have been systematically recruiting species, using them as frontline troops, then discarding them when they're no longer useful or start asking too many questions." Collins frowned. "Are you certain? These are serious accusations." "Look at these population graphs," Murphy said, sending files to her tablet. 6 different species, all showing the same pattern: initial growth after contact with the Vesperi, then sharp decline once they've served their purpose in the war. "The Kral could be manipulating this data," Collins suggested. "I considered that, but I found the same pattern hidden in the Vesperi's own historical archives. They've been careful to obscure it, but the numbers don't lie." Murphy ran a hand through his thinning hair. "The war itself might not be what we've been told either. From what I can piece together, the Kral were a peaceful trading species until the Vesperi attacked their core worlds 3 centuries ago." Admiral Collins was silent for a long moment. "Why would the Vesperi lie about being the defenders?" "Because their civilization is dying," Murphy explained. "Low birth rates, long maturation periods. They don't have the numbers to fight their own wars anymore. So they find emerging species, offer them advanced technology, use them as soldiers, then ensure they don't become competitors later." In orbit above Jupiter, General Ixil began his transmission to the Vesperi High Council. "Esteemed counselors, I come before you with grave concerns about the human integration plan. After extensive observation, I must warn you in the strongest possible terms. Do not let humans join this war." His skin pulsed with emotional colors as he continued, showing footage of human combat exercises, historical battles, and psychological evaluations. "They are unlike any species we have encountered. Their homeworld's harsh conditions have bred a species that thrives in situations we find intolerable. They continue fighting long past the point where our troops would retreat. Their tactics display a creativity and adaptability that will make them unpredictable allies and potentially devastating enemies if they ever discover our true intentions." Ixil's transmission continued for nearly an hour, building his case with methodical precision. Unknown to him, his signal was being intercepted by Earth monitoring stations. Admiral Collins watched with growing concern as the Vesperi general laid out exactly what the Vesperi planned for humanity. "I implore you," Ixil concluded, "reconsider this plan before it's too late. These humans are not just another species to be used and discarded. If they learn the truth about our past allies, if they realize our intentions, I fear what they might do." The High Council's response was brief and dismissive. "Your concerns are noted but overruled. The integration will continue as planned. Return to your duties." As the transmission ended, Ixil slumped in his chair. They hadn't listened. Again. On Earth, President Foster received the intercepted transmission, along with Dr. Murphy's analysis. Her face grew grave as she understood the full implications. "So the Vesperi plan to use us as cannon fodder?" she said quietly. "And this General Ixil seems to be the only one who understands how dangerous that plan might be." "For them, yes," Admiral Collins said. "He sees what we're capable of if provoked." President Foster stood and walked to the window overlooking Washington, D.C. "Prepare a response to the Vesperi ambassador. Tell them we're accelerating our participation in their alliance. And find a way to contact this General Ixil privately. He might become a valuable asset." She turned back to her advisors, her expression hardened with resolve. "If the Vesperi want to see what humans can do in war, we'll show them, just not in the way they expect." Captain Daniel Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Defiance, watching stars streak by outside the viewscreen. 6 months had passed since Earth discovered the truth about the Vesperi Kral War. 6 months of furious preparation, reverse engineering alien technology, and making plans that the Vesperi knew nothing about. "Status report," he ordered. His executive officer, Commander Olivia Ward, looked up from her console. "All systems normal, Captain. We'll reach the Alpha Centauri battlefront in 20 minutes. Daniel nodded. The Defiance was the first human-built starship using Vesperi technology. Officially, they were joining the fight as eager allies. The Vesperi believed humans were following their battle plan, ready to sacrifice themselves as the newest expendable species in a centuries-old war. They were wrong. The ship's communications officer called out, "Captain, incoming transmission from the Vesperi flagship." "On screen," Daniel replied. The image of Admiral Turl, the Vesperi fleet commander, appeared. His skin was a confident shade of green. "Captain Mitchell, welcome to your first battle. Remember, your ship will join Attack Group 3. Your target is the Kral supply vessels. Draw their fire while our main fleet attacks their heavy cruisers." In other words, Daniel thought, sacrifice yourselves so the Vesperi ships stay safe. "Understood, Admiral," he said aloud. "We're honored to fight alongside the Vesperi." As the transmission ended, Daniel turned to his bridge crew. "Review the real mission parameters. We stick to President Foster's orders." The crew nodded. They all knew why they were really here. On Earth, President Foster met secretly with an unlikely guest, General Ixil of the Vesperi fleet. After his warnings had been intercepted, Earth had made careful contact. It had taken months to convince him to defect, but eventually, he saw it was the only way to prevent disaster. "Your ship has reached the battle zone," Ixil said, his skin a worried gray. "The High Council expects them to follow orders and die bravely." "Captain Mitchell has other instructions," Foster replied. "Your information about Vesperi tactics has been invaluable, General. Thank you for your courage." Ixil's skin rippled with color. "I fear for my people. They don't understand what they've done by involving humans in this war." Foster smiled thinly. "They'll learn today." In the Alpha Centauri system, the battle began exactly as the Vesperi had planned. Kral warships moved to intercept the approaching fleet. The Defiance, along with 3 Vesperi light cruisers, broke formation to attack the Kral supply ships. But as soon as they were out of visual range of the main fleet, Captain Mitchell gave new orders. "All ships, execute Operation Thunderbolt." The Defiance suddenly accelerated to maximum speed, leaving their Vesperi escort ships behind. Instead of attacking the lightly defended supply vessels, they drove straight toward the heart of the Kral formation. "Sir," Commander Ward reported, "the Vesperi escorts are demanding we return to formation." "Ignore them," Daniel ordered. "Weapons. Status? Ready, Captain. Target the lead Kral battleship. Fire only on my command." The Defiance raced toward the massive Kral vessel. Alarms blared as enemy weapons locked onto them. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "we're being targeted by multiple Kral ships." Daniel remained calm. "Hold course. Open a channel to the Kral flagship." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances but followed orders. Moments later, the scowling face of Supreme Commander Vrex appeared on screen. The Kral leader had 4 eyes set in leathery skin, all blinking in surprise at seeing a human. "This is Captain Daniel Mitchell of Earth," Daniel said clearly. "We request immediate parley under the Galactic Neutral Species Protocol." Vrex looked confused. "Humans are Vesperi allies. There is no parley in war." "We are not allies," Daniel replied. "We were recruited under false pretenses. We have information about Vesperi activities that will interest you." There was a long pause. The Defiance continued hurtling toward the Kral formation, now close enough that a single volley could destroy them. "You have 1 minute," Vrex finally said. Daniel nodded to his communications officer, who sent a data package, everything Earth had learned about the Vesperi's systematic exploitation of other species, including evidence from General Ixil. Vrex's eyes widened as he reviewed the information. "This explains much about their recruitment patterns, but why come to us? You could simply withdraw from the conflict." Because the Vesperi won't stop with Earth, Daniel explained. We propose a different approach. The Krylon humans together could force peace negotiations. Supreme Commander Vrex was silent for a long moment. Then a rumbling sound emerged. Kral laughter. Brave human. You fly one ship into the middle of a battle fleet to propose an alliance? Yes, Daniel said simply. Before Vrex could respond, alarms blared again. Sir, the tactical officer shouted, the Vesperi main fleet has changed course. They're moving to intercept us. On the view screen, Vrex barked orders to his subordinates. Then he turned back to Daniel. Your ship is about to be caught between our forces and the Vesperi. What do you propose? Daniel smiled. That we give the Vesperi something they don't expect. Admiral Turl watched in growing rage as the human ship ignored orders and flew straight toward the Kral fleet. His skin had turned dark orange with anger. Recall attack groups 1 and 2, he ordered. Intercept that human vessel before it reaches the Kral command ship. His second-in-command looked concerned. But sir, that will expose our flank. Do it. The humans cannot be allowed to communicate with the Kral. They know too much. As the Vesperi ships changed formation, alerts sounded across the bridge. Sir, a sensor operator called out, the Kral fleet is standing down weapons. Turl stared in disbelief at the tactical display. The Kral warships were powering down their weapon systems. At the same time, the Defiance had come to a stop directly between the two fleets. What are they doing? Turl demanded. Hail the human captain immediately. When Captain Mitchell's face appeared on screen, his expression was calm and determined. Admiral Turl, he said, by now you've noticed the Kral have ceased fire. What have you done? Turl hissed. We've shared the truth, Daniel replied, about how the Vesperi have used and discarded species after species, about how this war began with your unprovoked attack on Kral worlds centuries ago. Turl's skin paled. These are lies. We have evidence provided by one of your own, Daniel continued. General Ixil saw the truth. He tried to warn your High Council about humanity. They should have listened. On the bridge of the Defiance, Daniel gave a subtle signal. Moments later, 50 small objects launched from the ship, racing toward both fleets. What are those? Turl demanded. Data packages, Daniel explained, being transmitted to every ship in both fleets. Every soldier, every crew member will know the truth about this war. Turl's skin went almost white with shock. In Vesperi society, information was carefully controlled by the leadership caste. The idea of directly informing common soldiers was unthinkable. You can't do this, Turl whispered. We already have, Daniel replied. Humanity will not be your next disposable army. Instead, we offer both sides something you've forgotten how to imagine: peace negotiations. As the data packages reached their targets, communication chatter erupted across both fleets. For the first time in centuries, Vesperi and Kral soldiers were learning the unfiltered truth about the war they had been fighting. Daniel turned to his crew. Now we wait. Either they'll destroy us, or this 300-year war begins to end today. Commander Ward looked at the view screens showing both alien fleets in standoff positions. Which do you think it will be, sir? Daniel watched as confusion spread through the enemy ranks. Humans don't just excel at fighting wars, Commander. Sometimes we're even better at ending them. 3 weeks after the standoff at Alpha Centauri, representatives from Earth, the Vesperi Alliance, and the Kral Dominion gathered in the United Nations General Assembly Hall. It was the first peace conference in over 3 centuries of interstellar. President Foster watched from her seat as delegates from dozens of worlds filled the chamber. Some species she recognized from the files General Ixil had provided, survivors of races nearly destroyed by their alliance with the Vesperi. Others were new to her, minor powers who had stayed neutral in the long conflict. Admiral Collins leaned close to her. The Vesperi High Council representatives look uncomfortable. Foster nodded. The 5 members of the Vesperi leadership caste sat rigidly in their seats, their skin colors shifting between pale yellow and gray, signs of stress and fear according to Ixil. They should be uncomfortable, Foster replied quietly. The data packets Captain Mitchell distributed have circulated throughout both empires. Their own people are demanding answers. On the other side of the hall, Supreme Commander Vrex of the Kral led his delegation with surprising dignity. The massive four-eyed alien had agreed to the peace talks within hours of receiving Earth's evidence. Unlike the Vesperi leadership, the Kral government system required more accountability to their population. "This meeting will come to order," announced the UN Secretary-General. "For the first time in generations, there is hope for peace between the Vesperi Alliance and the Kral Dominion. We thank both delegations for agreeing to these historic talks." Captain Mitchell sat with the Earth military delegation. His actions at Alpha Centauri had made him a hero on Earth, and a controversial figure among both alien powers. The Vesperi High Council had demanded his arrest for treason. The Kral had offered him honorary citizenship. He had accepted neither. As the opening speeches began, Mitchell reflected on how quickly events had unfolded. What the Vesperi had planned, as a simple recruitment of cannon fodder, had instead become the catalyst for ending their centuries of manipulation. General Ixel entered the chamber last, escorted by UN security officers. His defection had been the turning point, providing Earth with the evidence needed to expose the Vesperi's true intentions. Now he walked a difficult path, rejected by his own people, but not yet trusted by others. The lead Vesperi counselor spoke, first his translator converting his clicks and whistles into English. "The Vesperi Alliance has always sought peace and stability in the galaxy. These human accusations are exaggerations and misunderstandings of our cultural practices." A murmur ran through the assembly. In the public gallery, representatives from species who had suffered under Vesperi protection stirred angrily. President Foster stood to respond. "With respect, Counselor, the evidence speaks for itself. 6 different species systematically recruited, used as frontline troops, then abandoned or actively undermined once they were no longer useful. We have General Ixel's testimony, your own historical records, and data from multiple independent sources." She gestured to a large display screen showing population graphs of former Vesperi allies. Each showed the same pattern: growth upon joining the alliance, then catastrophic decline. "Earth will not become the next victim in this cycle," Foster continued. "Nor will we allow other emerging species to be exploited. This war ends now, and a new galactic order begins, one based on genuine cooperation, not manipulation." The Vesperi. Counselor's skin darkened to deep blue. "You understand nothing of galactic politics. Our methods preserve stability for centuries." Supreme Commander Vrex rumbled something that made his translator pause before providing the English version. "Stability built on the bones of innocent species is no stability at all. The Kral were peaceful traders before the Vesperi attacked our homeworlds, claiming we were a threat to galactic security." Dr. Murphy, who had been studying both alien cultures intensively, stepped forward with his analysis. "The fundamental problem is clear. The Vesperi have low birth rates and extremely long maturation periods. They cannot sustain military operations without assistance. Rather than admit this weakness and seek genuine allies, they developed a system of exploitation." General Ixel finally spoke, his voice soft but clear. "I warned my people about humans. I told them you were different, too adaptable, too questioning, too determined to be treated as disposable troops. They should have listened." He turned to face the Vesperi delegation. "I betrayed my people because I saw a pattern that would lead to our destruction. If we had successfully recruited humans, used them, and then tried to discard them, they would have turned on us with a vengeance no previous species could manage." The hall was silent as Ixil continued. "Humans don't just fight wars better than any species I've studied. They also have a stronger sense of justice. They could have used their knowledge to destroy the Vesperi completely. Instead, they chose to force us to the negotiating table." The talks continued for days. Old wounds were exposed, accusations were made and countered, historical records were examined and cross-referenced. Slowly, painfully, the outline of a peace agreement began to emerge. Captain Mitchell found General Ixil alone on the UN building's observation deck late one night, staring at the stars barely visible above New York's lights. "You risked everything," Mitchell said. "Why?" Ixil's skin shifted to a calm blue. I saw what was coming. If humans had joined the war, fought for us, then discovered our deception, your response would have ended my civilization completely. You think we'd have destroyed your worlds? Without question, Ixil replied. I studied your history. Pearl Harbor, September 11th. Whenever your people are betrayed, your response is overwhelming. And you never, ever forget. Mitchell considered this. Maybe, but we're not just warriors. We can build things too. That's why I defected, Ixil said. I saw both possibilities in humans. Unmatched capacity for destruction, but also for creation. I hoped you would choose the latter. On the final day of negotiations, President Foster addressed the assembled delegations. The peace framework was complex but fair. Reparations for damaged worlds, guarantees of sovereignty, monitored disarmament, of planet-killing weapons and protection for developing species. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, she said. The war that consumed generations ends not with destruction, but with understanding. Earth will help enforce these accords. We pledge to use our strength not for conquest, but for justice. The delegates prepared to sign the agreement. Supreme Commander Vrex approached General Ixil. You were right about the humans, the Krah leader said. They are unlike any species we've encountered. Ixil watched as Captain Mitchell chatted with diplomats from a dozen worlds. Yes. When I pleaded with my people not to let humans join this war, I feared what they would do to us. I never imagined they would end the war instead. A fortunate miscalculation, Vrex observed. Indeed, Ixil agreed, his skin shifting to peaceful green. The Vesperi feared humans as warriors. We should have recognized their greater strength, their capacity to imagine better futures and make them real. As the Earth delegation prepared for the signing ceremony, Admiral Collins found Captain Mitchell staring at the completed treaty document. Having second thoughts, she asked. Mitchell shook his head. Just thinking about what General Ixil said when this all began. He begged his leaders not to let humans join the war. Collins smiled. He was right in a way. We didn't join their war. We ended it. Admiral Vexthor of the Galactic Imperial Fleet stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Glory, his four eyes fixed on the blue planet displayed on the main view screen. Earth. Such an ordinary name for such an ordinary world. The Admiral's upper arms crossed over his chest while his lower arms rested on the command console. Disappointing, he said to no one in particular. Intelligence reports classified this as a developing world with minimal space capabilities. Hardly worth the journey. The bridge crew continued their work in silence. No one questioned the Admiral's words. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds across dozens of galaxies. Some fell quickly, others fought back, but all eventually became part of the Empire. Earth would be no different. Lieutenant Commander Zarkel approached the Admiral, her skin shifting from its natural purple to a respectful blue. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the scout ship Vigilant. They found something unusual near the asteroid belt. Vexthor turned his head, antenna twitching with interest. Show me. The view screen changed to display an object floating in space. It was clearly artificial, a metallic sphere with strange markings, about the size of a small shuttle. The scout ship hovered nearby, scanning beams washing over the object. It appears to be a warning beacon, Zarkel explained. Quite old, but still functional. It's broadcasting a message in multiple languages, including several we recognize. And what does this beacon say? Vexthor asked, his voice betraying mild curiosity. The message is simple but disturbing, Zarkel replied. It says, Earth is a trap. Approach with caution. Vexthor laughed, a harsh sound that echoed across the bridge. A trap? This primitive world? Scan it again and determine its origin. Already done, Admiral. The beacon's technology doesn't match any known civilization in our database. However, its age is estimated at approximately 300 years. The Admiral waved a dismissive hand. Likely the remnants of some extinct race that encountered these humans. Place a marker for the archaeologists and continue our approach. Yes, Admiral. Zarkel said, but hesitated. Should we perhaps investigate further before? Do you question my orders, Lieutenant Commander? Vexthor's skin darkened to a threatening red. Zarkel immediately bowed. No, Admiral, I'll instruct the fleet to maintain course. As the Lieutenant Commander retreated, Vexthor returned his gaze to the small blue planet. Something about this unassuming world made him uneasy. Though he would never admit it to his crew, he had led conquest missions for over 60 years, but something about this Earth felt different. Prepare a survey team, he ordered. I want boots on their moon within the day. Dr. Lily Bennett rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the computer screen. The observatory had been quiet for hours, most of her colleagues having gone home long ago. But Lily couldn't leave. Not after what she'd seen. You're still here? Alan Murphy pushed open the door, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Lily. It's almost midnight. What's so fascinating that you can't go home? Lily took the coffee gratefully. Look at these readings from the Deep Space Array. Something's out there, Alan. Something big. Alan leaned over her shoulder, squinting at the screen. Could be a malfunction. Or space debris. Space debris doesn't move like this. Lily pointed at the pattern on her screen. Whatever this is, it's changing course. Deliberately. Alan frowned. Have you told anyone else? I sent the data to NASA headquarters but haven't heard back. Lily took a sip of coffee. They probably think I'm crazy. The phone on the wall rang suddenly, making them both jump. Alan reached for it. Hello? Yes, she's here. He handed the phone to Lily, his expression serious. It's for you. Someone from the Pentagon. Lily took the phone, her heart pounding. This is Dr. Bennett. The voice on the other end was clipped and formal. Dr. Bennett, this is General Frank Powell. A car is on its way to bring you to Washington. Pack for a few days. Your discovery has been verified by 3 other observatories. What exactly have I discovered, General? Lily asked, her throat suddenly dry. There was a pause before Powell answered. We're not sure yet, but whatever it is, it's big and it's headed our way. 12 hours later, Lily sat in a conference room deep below the Pentagon. The table was filled with military officers, government officials, and a handful of scientists like herself. At the head of the table stood General Powell, a stern-faced man with gray hair and piercing eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, Powell began, what you're about to hear is classified at the highest level. 24 hours ago, our satellites detected multiple objects approaching Earth from beyond Mars. These objects are moving at speeds that defy our current understanding of physics. He nodded to a technician who dimmed the lights. A projection appeared on the wall, showing what looked like a cluster of stars moving against the backdrop of space. These aren't stars, Powell continued. Based on their size and configuration, we believe they are vessels. Spacecraft of unknown origin. The room erupted in murmurs. Lily felt her heart racing. First contact. After centuries of wondering, humanity was about to meet aliens. Are they responding to our signals? Asked NASA Director Patricia Collins. Powell shook his head. We've tried all frequencies. No response. What about their trajectory? This came from Dr. Sam Winters, a physicist Lily recognized from academic journals. Where are they headed? Their current path will bring them to Earth within 48 hours, Powell replied. They've already established a presence on the dark side of the moon. The room fell silent. Lily felt a chill run down her spine. So what do we do? She finally asked. Try to communicate? Prepare some kind of welcome? Powell exchanged glances with a woman Lily hadn't noticed before. She sat in the corner wearing a plain black suit with no identifying insignia. That's where you come in, Dr. Bennett, Powell said. You and the other scientists here have been selected because of your expertise. We need to understand their intentions before they arrive. The woman in the black suit stood up. I'm Colonel Diane Harper, she said. For the past 60 years, I've been in charge of a program called Operation Watchman. We've been preparing for this moment for generations. Preparing how? Dr. Winters asked. Harper walked to the front of the room, her face grim. The public has never been told the full truth about certain incidents. Roswell, the Phoenix Lights, the Belgian UFO wave. These weren't isolated events. They were reconnaissance. Lily felt her world tilting. You're saying we've been visited before? Many times, Harper confirmed, and not always peacefully, which is why we created Project Artemis. The moon-based program? Winters looked confused. That's just getting started. Harper smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The public Project Artemis is a cover. The real Artemis has been operational since 1997, and it's not just a base, it's our first line of defense. Powell cleared his throat. We believe these visitors are the advance force of something much larger. And based on what we know, they're not here to make friends. How can you be so sure? Lily asked. Harper's eyes met hers. Because they've been taking our people for decades, testing us, probing our defenses, and now they're coming in force. She pressed a button, and the image changed to show what looked like a massive ship in orbit around the moon. This photo was taken 6 hours ago by our lunar observatory, Harper said. That ship is over 5 miles long, and it's not alone. The image zoomed out to reveal dozens of similar ships along with hundreds of smaller vessels. Ladies and gentlemen, General Powell said quietly, we are facing an invasion, and we need to decide right now how humanity responds. Lily stared. At the image, her mind racing. All her life she had looked to the stars with wonder and hope. Now those same stars had sent something terrible their way, and somehow she was part of humanity's response. She only hoped it wouldn't be too late. The Imperial Survey Team's shuttle touched down on the gray, dusty surface of Earth's moon. Science Officer Quarrel was the first to step out, his environmental suit glimmering in the harsh sunlight. Behind him, 6 other Imperial scientists, and soldiers followed, their movements awkward in the low gravity. Primitive satellite, Quarrel muttered, scanning the barren landscape with his handheld device. No atmosphere, minimal resources. Why do the humans even bother with it? Lieutenant Draz, the security officer, pointed toward the horizon. They have some kind of installation about 20 kilometers from here. Small, barely detectable from orbit. Quarrel nodded. Let's set up the observation post here. We'll study the humans carefully before Admiral Vexthor launches the main invasion. The team quickly assembled their equipment, sensors to monitor Earth's communications, probes to analyze the planet's defenses, and weapons in case of unexpected resistance. Within hours, a small dome-shaped structure stood on the lunar surface, invisible to Earth's primitive detection systems thanks to Imperial cloaking technology. Inside the dome, Quarrel watched video feeds from the thousands of tiny probes they had released into Earth's atmosphere. The screens showed humans going about their daily lives, working in offices, driving vehicles, walking in parks, none of them aware of what was coming. These humans are amusing, Quarrel reported to Admiral Vexthor via secure communication. They fight among themselves over arbitrary borders and resources. They pollute their own world with primitive energy sources. Their technology is centuries behind ours. The Admiral's image flickered on the screen. What about their military capabilities? Laughable, Quarrel replied. Chemical propellants, basic nuclear weapons, limited space presence. They would be no match for even one of our destroyers, let alone the entire fleet. And the warning beacon? Any indication of what trap it might be referring to? Quarrel hesitated. Nothing concrete, Admiral. We've detected unusual energy readings from several locations on the planet, but they're faint and inconsistent, most likely normal variations in their power grid. The warning beacon must be a relic from some extinct race that encountered humans long ago. Very well. Continue your observations. The invasion fleet will arrive in 36 hours. As the Admiral's image disappeared, Quarrel turned to study the screens again. Something about these humans bothered him. Despite their obvious technological inferiority, they had achieved much in a short time. From primitive flight to space travel in less than a century, it suggested a resourcefulness that concerned him. Lieutenant Draz, he called. Have our probes detected any unusual materials or technologies? Draz checked his console. Nothing significant. Although, he paused, frowning at the data. There are several facilities with unusually thick shielding. Our probes can't penetrate them. Military bases, perhaps. Some, yes, but others appear to be scientific research facilities. And there's something else. Draz brought up a map on the main screen. These shielded locations form an unusual pattern across the planet, almost like they're positioned according to some kind of grid. Quarrel stared at the pattern, a feeling of unease growing within him. Keep watching them, and increase our surveillance of their military communications. In a facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Lily Bennett stared at the holographic display showing the moon's far side. They think we can't see them, Colonel Harper said, standing beside her. Their cloaking technology is advanced, but we've been studying it for decades. Dr. Sam Winters pointed to a blinking dot on the display. That's their observation post. Small team, probably gathering intelligence. Let them look, General Powell said grimly. Operation Watchman has kept our real capabilities hidden for precisely this moment. Lily still couldn't believe what she had learned in the past 24 hours. Humanity had been aware of extraterrestrial civilizations since the 1940s. The government, not just America's but a secret coalition of world powers, had been capturing alien technology, reverse engineering it, and preparing for eventual contact. So, the moon base, the Mars missions, our entire space program, she began. All real, Harper confirmed. But what the public sees is only a fraction of what we've built. Project Artemis isn't just on the moon, it's throughout the solar system. But how did you keep this secret for so long? Lily asked. Someone would have talked. Compartmentalization, Powell explained. Very few people know the whole picture, and those who do understand what's at stake. Dr. Winters brought up another display, showing what looked like a massive spacecraft hidden inside a crater. This is the CSS Defender, built using technology from crashed ships we've recovered over the decades. It's just one of several vessels we've constructed. If you have all this, Lily gestured at the advanced technology around them. Why not reveal it? Why let the world think we're so vulnerable? Colonel Harper smiled. Because appearing vulnerable is our greatest advantage. These aliens, the Galactic Imperial Fleet they call themselves, have conquered thousands of worlds. They're arrogant, overconfident. They expect an easy victory. So we let them think they'll get one, Powell added. And then we spring the trap. Lily's mind was racing. The beacon, the warning beacon they found. You put it there. Harper nodded. 300 years ago, our first interstellar ships encountered the Empire. They were small, exploratory vessels, easily overlooked, but they learned enough to know that the Empire would eventually find Earth. So we prepared. The warning was a test, Winters explained. Any peaceful civilization would have respected it, or at least approached with caution and attempted communication. The Empire ignored it completely, which tells us everything we need to know about their intentions, Powell concluded. A young officer entered the room and saluted. General, we've detected a new group of ships entering the solar system, much larger than the advance force. They're right on schedule, Harper said. The main invasion fleet. Powell turned to the others. It's time to activate the full defense grid. Dr. Bennett, your expertise in communications will be vital for coordinating our response. Dr. Winters, I need you to oversee the shield deployment. What about the civilian population? Lily asked. Shouldn't we warn them? And cause global panic? Powell shook his head. No. If our plan works, most civilians will never know how close we came to invasion. If it fails... He didn't finish the sentence. Harper placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. We've been preparing for this day for generations, Dr. Bennett. Now we need your help to ensure humanity survives it. Lily nodded slowly. Just days ago, her biggest concern had been securing funding for her research. Now she was part of humanity's last line of defense against an alien invasion. What do you need me to do? She asked. The Empire monitors electronic communications, Harper explained. But we've developed a quantum entanglement system that they can't detect. We need you to coordinate communications between our hidden bases worldwide. And Dr. Winters? Lily glanced at the physicist. The shield technology is still experimental, Winters admitted. It should protect our major cities from orbital bombardment, but it needs to be calibrated precisely. General Powell looked at each of them. Make no mistake, we're outgunned and outnumbered, but we have surprise on our side. The Empire thinks they're hunting us. They don't realize we've been hunting them for centuries. On the main screen, the dots representing Imperial ships grew larger as they approached Earth. The invasion had begun. Humanity's trap was about to be sprung, and Admiral Vexthor still had no idea what was waiting for him. Admiral Vexthor paced the bridge of the Eternal Glory, his patience wearing thin. The main invasion fleet had arrived, joining his advance force in Earth orbit. Over 300 Imperial warships now surrounded the small blue planet, their weapons primed and ready. "Science Officer Quarol," Vexthor called, his voice echoing across the bridge. "Your latest report is concerning." Quarol stood at attention, trying to hide his unease. "Admiral, I merely suggest caution. There are unusual radiation patterns coming from several locations on the planet, and our probes have identified gaps in our intelligence." "Gaps?" Vexthor's skin darkened with annoyance. "Explain." "Some areas of the planet are shielded from our scans, and their satellite network seems incomplete, as if some of their space assets are hidden from view." The Admiral waved a dismissive hand. "Primitive attempts at security, nothing more. These humans have no unified government, no space fleet, and only basic weapons. This conquest will be remembered as the shortest in Imperial history." He turned to his second-in-command. "Order the first wave to begin landing operations. Target their major population centers: New York, Beijing, London, Moscow. Show of force protocol." "Yes, Admiral," the officer replied, relaying the commands. Vexthor watched on the view screen as hundreds of Imperial shuttles departed from the larger ships, beginning their descent toward Earth. The humans would surrender quickly once they saw the Empire's power. They always did. Across Earth, people stared at the sky in terror and awe as massive alien ships appeared above major cities. Traffic stopped. Crowds gathered in streets. News broadcasts showed the same images worldwide: enormous dark vessels hovering silently over skyscrapers. In New York, office workers pressed against windows to see the mile-wide ship blocking out the sun. In Tokyo, thousands filmed with their phones as smaller craft descended toward the streets. In London, police tried helplessly to control panicking crowds. But deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the mood was different. Colonel Harper watched multiple screens showing the invasion, her face calm. "They're following standard Imperial invasion protocol," she noted. "Just as our intelligence predicted." General Powell nodded. "All defense stations report ready, waiting for your command." Harper looked at Lily, who sat at a communications console. "Dr. Bennett, status of the quantum network?" 100% operational, Lily replied. "All bases are linked and standing by." Harper took a deep breath. "Very well. Commence Operation Trojan Horse." Powell picked up a secure phone. "Defense Grid Alpha, you are authorized to engage. I repeat, you are authorized to engage." The first wave of Imperial shuttles entered Earth's atmosphere, their hulls glowing red-hot during descent. Inside, Imperial troops prepared for landing, checking weapons and readying for the ground assault. Commander Reltak addressed his troops. "Remember your training. These humans are primitive but numerous. Standard intimidation tactics, minimal casualties until their leaders surrender." His words were cut short as the shuttle suddenly lurched to one side. Warning alarms blared. "Status report," Reltak demanded. The pilot's voice was panicked. "Unknown energy signature locking onto us. It's not in our database." Outside, the sky had changed. Across Earth, hidden defense platforms were activating. From mountains, oceans, and deserts, concealed weapon systems emerged, targeting the Imperial shuttles with precise energy beams. Reltak barely had time to register shock before his shuttle exploded, along with dozens of others across the planet. On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, Admiral Vexthor watched in disbelief as nearly half of the first wave vanished from tactical displays. "What is happening?" he roared. "Where did those energy signatures come from?" His officers scrambled for answers. "Admiral, the humans appear to have advanced defense systems we didn't detect. They're using some kind of directed energy weapons." "Impossible." Vexthor slammed his fist on the console. "Their technological level is centuries behind this capability. Science." Officer Quarrel studied the readings, his face paling. "Admiral, these weapons, they're similar to our own technology, but they shouldn't have this. They couldn't have developed it independently." Vexthor turned on him, fury in his eyes. "You assured me they were primitive." "They appeared to be," Quarrel insisted. "All our intelligence indicated your intelligence was wrong." The Admiral turned to his tactical officer. "Launch the second wave, full combat deployment. No more show of force. I want those defense platforms destroyed." In Washington, D.C., the White House Situation Room was filled with government officials watching the battle unfold. The president stood calmly as reports came in from around the world. London reports 60% of enemy craft destroyed. Beijing confirms similar numbers. Our Moscow station is engaging a second wave. The defense secretary looked at the president. "Sir, should we inform the public about Operation Watchman now?" "Not yet," the president replied. "Let's see if the hidden fleet needs to be activated." On a secure screen, Colonel Harper's face appeared. "Mr. President, the Imperial fleet is launching a second wave. Larger numbers, combat configuration. Can the defense grid handle it?" "It was designed to, sir. But this would be the time to deploy our aerospace forces if you want to minimize damage to our cities." The president nodded. "You have authorization, Colonel. Godspeed." Imperial Commander Zevnar led the second wave toward Earth in his heavy assault shuttle. Unlike the first wave, his forces were fully armed and shielded, ready for serious resistance. "Approach pattern Delta," he ordered. "Evasive maneuvers. Target those defense platforms with precision strikes." His shuttle shook as it dodged energy beams from below. The defense grid was formidable, but not impossible to overcome. Several Imperial craft had already broken through, landing troops in New York and Shanghai. "We're almost through their defenses," Zevnar told his troops. "Prepare for ground assault." A warning alarm cut him off. His tactical officer looked up in shock. "Commander, multiple contacts approaching at high speed. They're coming from the moon." Zevnar turned to his viewport just in time to see sleek, angular craft rising from Earth's atmosphere. They looked nothing like the primitive aircraft his intelligence had shown him. These vessels moved with impossible speed and precision, their hulls bearing Earth markings but their design unmistakably advanced. "What are those?" he whispered. His question was answered when the lead Earth vessel fired, its beam cutting through his shuttle's shields as if they weren't there. Dr. Winters stood in the Lunar Command Center, watching as Captain Jerry Ford led Earth's hidden aerospace fleet into battle. The vessels, a hybrid of human engineering and reversed-engineered alien technology, tore through the Imperial second wave. "They never expected us to have ships like these," Winters said quietly. "That's why it's working." Next to him, Dr. Bennett monitored communications. "Ground forces report Imperial troops landing in 12 cities. They're encountering our Special Forces units." On the screens, they could see the Imperial troops facing another shock. Earth soldiers were equipped with exoskeletons and energy weapons that matched Imperial technology. The troops had trained for decades using captured alien equipment, learning Imperial tactics and developing counters. "The trap is fully sprung," Winters said. "Now we just have to hope it holds." Above Earth, Admiral Vexthor watched his carefully planned invasion falling apart. The warning beacon's message echoed in his mind. Earth is a trap. Too late, he was beginning to understand what it meant. Admiral Vexthor stood rigid at the command center of the Eternal Glory, watching in disbelief as the battle unfolded. Imperial ships, the pride of the Galactic fleet, were falling one after another to Earth's unexpected defenses. His 4 hands gripped the railing until his knuckles turned pale blue. "How is this possible?" he demanded of no one in particular. These humans should be cowering in fear, not fighting back with our own technology. Science Officer Poirot worked frantically at his station analyzing the human weapons. Admiral, these aren't just similar to our technology. They're designed specifically to counter our systems. Their shields operate on frequencies that penetrate our defenses. Their weapons target our vulnerable points with precision. A coincidence? Vexthor insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. No, Admiral, Poirot said quietly. This is not coincidence. The humans have studied our technology. They know our weaknesses. They've been preparing for us specifically. On the tactical display, another Imperial cruiser blinked out as Earth's hidden fleet continued their assault. The humans had somehow concealed an entire aerospace force, with vessels emerging from the moon, from underwater bases, and from what appeared to be ordinary mountains that opened to reveal launching bays. Launch all remaining ships, Vexthor ordered. Every fighter, every shuttle, overwhelm them with numbers. His tactical officer hesitated. Admiral, perhaps we should consider retreating to regroup and... Silence. Vexthor's skin flushed deep red with rage. The Empire does not retreat from primitives. Launch everything we have. Above the skies of North America, American fighter pilots Kevin Palmer and Maria Rodriguez led a squadron of advanced aircraft against the Imperial fighters. These weren't the ordinary jets the public knew about. These were hybrid craft built with technology reverse-engineered from crashed Imperial ships collected over decades. Bandit at 3 o'clock, Kevin called through his helmet comm. Watch, those energy signatures, they're switching to pulse weapons. I see it, Maria replied, banking her fighter sharply to avoid an energy burst. She locked onto the Imperial craft and fired. Her weapons, designed specifically to penetrate Imperial shields, sliced through the enemy fighter, sending it spiraling toward the ocean below. Eagle Squadron, form up, Kevin ordered. We've got a destroyer breaking through to Washington airspace. The squadron regrouped and accelerated toward the massive Imperial ship that was pushing through Earth's defenses. The destroyer was firing indiscriminately at the city below, its weapons leaving smoking craters in the National Mall. Activate sunburst missiles, Kevin instructed his squadron. Hit their engine ports simultaneously. Remember your training. These ships have the same weakness as the one that crashed in Arizona in '79. 12 fighters surrounded the destroyer, each launching missiles toward specific points on the enormous vessel. The Imperial ship tried to evade, but the human pilots had trained for this moment for years. The missiles struck home and the destroyer shuddered as explosions rippled along its hull. Direct hits, Maria called out. She's going down. Everyone, clear the area. The pilots pulled away as the destroyer listed to one side and began to fall. Emergency systems kicked in, directing it away from the populated city center and toward the Potomac River, where it crashed with a massive splash. In Moscow, Russian forces deployed electromagnetic pulse weapons that disabled Imperial shields. In Beijing, Chinese military units used sonic disruptors that sent Imperial ground troops into confused retreat. Across Europe, hidden defense installations revealed weapons far beyond what should have been possible for Earth's technological level. Every major nation had played a part in Operation Watchman, each contributing to humanity's secret defense. For 70 years, governments that openly distrusted each other had secretly cooperated, sharing recovered alien technology and developing countermeasures for this very day. In the underground command center, Dr. Bennett monitored global communications, coordinating between defense forces worldwide. London reports their sector secure, she told Colonel Harper. Paris has heavy fighting in the north but is holding. Tokyo has driven back all landing forces. Harper nodded. And our aerospace fleet? Captain Ford reports 60% of Imperial fighters destroyed. They're now targeting the command ships. General Powell studied the tactical display. We're winning the battle, but at great cost. Many of our hidden installations have been revealed now. If the Empire sends reinforcements, they won't get the chance. Harper replied with quiet confidence. It's time for the final phase. Dr. Winters, status of Project Prometheus? From his station, Dr. Winters looked up with a smile. Ready for launch, Colonel. Harper picked up a secure phone. This is Eagle Actual to Prometheus Control. You are authorized to launch. I repeat, you are authorized to launch. Admiral Vexthor was considering a tactical retreat when his sensor officer called out an alarm. Admiral, new contacts detected emerging from behind the planet's fourth world. Mars, they call it. What? Vexthor rushed to the screen. Show me. The display shifted to show a fleet of vessels rising from the red planet's surface. They were larger than Earth's other ships, their design clearly meant for deep space travel. How many? Vexthor demanded. At least 30 capital ships, Admiral, the officer replied, his voice shaking. They appear to be… What? Speak. They appear to be Dreadnought class, sir, equal to our own. Impossible. The word echoed in Vexthor's mind but died before reaching his lips. The evidence was before him. Somehow these humans had built an entire fleet and hidden it on another planet, waiting for this moment. Science Officer Quarrel approached, his expression grim. Admiral, I've analyzed that warning beacon again. I believe I misled you earlier. How? Vexthor asked, his voice hollow. The beacon is not ancient at all, it's only about 300 years old. And the material? It's of human origin. Human. But that would mean… They've been in space far longer than we thought, Quarrel confirmed. The warning wasn't left by some extinct race. The humans left it themselves. The realization struck Vexthor like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just gotten lucky or captured a few pieces of technology. They had known the Empire was coming. They had prepared specifically for this invasion, studying Imperial tactics, weapons, and weaknesses. The entire planet had been one elaborate trap, with humanity only appearing primitive and vulnerable. All ships, he ordered, his voice barely audible. Prepare for… Before he could finish, the bridge rocked violently as something struck the eternal glory. The tactical officer looked up in horror. Direct hit to our main engines. The human vessels from Mars are targeting our command ships with precision. Through the view screen, Vexthor watched as the newly arrived Earth fleet moved with practiced coordination, targeting the largest Imperial vessels. These weren't the actions of a species encountering superior technology for the first time. These were the tactics of a force that had studied its enemy for centuries. Send a message to Imperial High Command, Vexthor ordered. The situation is… He paused, the words bitter in his mouth. The situation is untenable. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Vexthor was about to order a retreat. But looking at the destruction of his once mighty fleet, he wondered if it was already too late. Admiral Vexthor sat in his command chair aboard the damaged Eternal Glory, watching as his once mighty invasion fleet scattered. More than half of his ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest were attempting to retreat, fighting off the relentless human forces that pursued them beyond Earth's orbit. Status report, he demanded, his voice flat and defeated. Main engines at 20% capacity, shields failing, weapon systems operational but depleted, his tactical officer reported. We've lost contact with 37% of our remaining vessels, Vexthor nodded slowly. And the humans? Still pursuing, Admiral. Their Mars fleet is cutting off our retreat vectors. They appear to be herding us toward the outer system. A bitter laugh escaped the Admiral's lips. Herding us, like animals to slaughter. Science Officer Quarrel approached cautiously. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. They're requesting to speak with you directly. Put it through, Vexthor ordered, straightening in his chair. Even in defeat, he would maintain the dignity expected of an Imperial officer. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a human male in a simple dark uniform. He appeared older, with gray hair and a calm, confident expression. Admiral Vexthor, the human said, I am Director Howard Johnson of the Terran Defense Initiative. I trust I'm speaking with the commander of this invasion force. Vexthor's skin darkened slightly in anger. I am Admiral Vexthor of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. You will explain how your primitive world has access to advanced technology and how you knew we were coming. The human smiled slightly. You should have heeded the warning, Admiral. Earth is indeed a trap. One we set specifically for you. Explain, Vexthor demanded. Certainly, Johnson replied. Earth is not as isolated as you believed. We sent our first interstellar colony ships over 300 years ago. Small, stealthy vessels that established human settlements throughout nearby star systems. Vexthor's antenna twitched in surprise. Impossible. Our surveys would have detected them. Not if we didn't want to be found, Johnson countered. These colonies stayed hidden, watching as your empire expanded. They witnessed how you conquered, world after world. They recognized the existential threat you posed to humanity. The admiral remained silent as Johnson continued. Rather than fight a losing battle against your vastly superior forces, we devised a different strategy. Earth deliberately maintained the appearance of a primitive world while secretly preparing for your inevitable invasion. The warning beacon, Vexthor said quietly. Yes, we placed it to test your intentions. Any peaceful civilization would have respected the warning or approached with diplomatic caution. Your immediate dismissal of it confirmed what our colonies had learned about the Empire. Vexthor felt a chill run through him as he realized the full extent of the deception. This entire planet, everything we saw, a carefully constructed illusion, Johnson confirmed. The primitive aircraft, the seemingly basic satellites, the apparent political divisions, all designed to make you underestimate us. But the technology you've deployed against us, reverse-engineered from Imperial ships we've captured over the centuries. Your empire has lost vessels during explorations, has it not? Not all were destroyed in accidents. Some were captured by our colonies and sent back to Earth for study. On the bridge, Science Officer Quarrol made a small sound of realization. The missing exploration vessels in the Orion sector, the lost research ships near the Pleiades, we always assumed they were destroyed by natural phenomena. We've been studying you for generations, Johnson continued. Learning your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. Everything we built was designed specifically to counter your capabilities. Admiral Vexthor's 4 hands clenched into fists. What happens now? Do you destroy my remaining ships, take prisoners for your research? No, Admiral, we're not like you. We don't seek conquest. We only want to protect ourselves and ensure our survival. You have 2 options. Surrender and accept our terms or attempt to retreat, though I should warn you that your hyperdrive systems may not function as expected within our solar system. What terms? Vexthor asked cautiously. Return to your empire. Inform them that Earth and all human colonies are sovereign territory, not to be approached or threatened. A formal treaty will follow through diplomatic channels we'll establish. Vexthor laughed bitterly. You expect the Empire to simply accept this defeat? To leave you in peace? The Imperial Council will send a larger force once they learn what happened here. Johnson's expression remained calm. I doubt that, Admiral. You see, this was only phase 1 of our plan. As if on cue, Vexthor's communications officer called out in alarm. Admiral, we're receiving emergency transmissions from Imperial outposts across 3 sectors. They report simultaneous attacks from unknown forces. Show me, Vexthor ordered, his blood running cold. The display split to show multiple Imperial facilities under attack. The vessels engaging them were similar to those deployed from Mars, but they flew under different banners, the flags of human colony worlds Vexthor had never heard of. While your fleet was focused on Earth, Johnson explained, our colonies activated Phase 2. The human settlements you never discovered are now rising up throughout Imperial territory. This is impossible, Vexthor whispered. The logistics, the coordination required. 300 years of preparation, Admiral. 300 years of hiding, building, and waiting for this moment. In the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Bennett and Dr. Winters watched the exchange on the main screen. Colonel Harper stood nearby, her expression solemn. It worked, Lily said quietly. The whole plan actually worked. Harper nodded. Humanity's greatest deception. We showed them what they expected to see. A primitive world easy for conquest. Meanwhile, our real strength remained hidden. What happens now? Dr. Winters asked. Now we reveal ourselves fully, Harper replied. Our colonies across 12 star systems are simultaneously rising up. The Empire believed they were hunting us. They never realized we've been hunting them. On another screen, they could see Captain Greg Mitchell's Prometheus fleet herding the remaining Imperial ships away from Earth. The sleek vessels, built in secret facilities beneath the Martian surface, represented humanity's true technological level, far beyond the primitive image they had projected to the galaxy. "Will there be peace?" Lily asked. "Eventually," Harper said. "The Empire doesn't respond well to defeat, but they do respect strength. Our colonies are targeting their military installations, not civilian worlds. We're showing them we could do more damage if we wished, but choose restraint." Admiral Vexthor looked at the human on his view screen. "You've been planning this for centuries. The warning beacon wasn't just a test, it was part of your trap." "Yes," Johnson acknowledged. "Earth is the trap. Not because of some weapon or natural phenomenon, but because humanity engineered the perfect strategic deception. We used your own arrogance against you." Vexthor closed his eyes briefly. In all his years commanding Imperial forces, he had never faced a defeat like this, never encountered a species that had outthought the Empire so thoroughly. "I accept your terms," he said finally. "I will return to Imperial space and deliver your message." "A wise decision, Admiral," Johnson replied. "Safe journey home." As the transmission ended, Vexthor stared at the blue planet receding on his view screen. Such an ordinary-looking world. Who could have imagined the elaborate trap it contained? The warning had been clear. Earth is a trap. The Empire had ignored it, confident in their superiority. And it had indeed been too late. The true lesson would echo through Imperial policy for generations to come. Never underestimate a species willing to spend centuries preparing for a single moment of victory. Humanity had revealed itself not just as a formidable defender, but as the most patient predator the Empire had ever encountered.